Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. I'm excited to be the facilitator for tonight. And the topic I have carefully selected, is workforce reset, HR strategy and communication in crisis moments. Today's conversation is going to be case study led, and we are going to be looking at a real life scenario, and it's the case of the Airbnb's 2020 layoffs. All right. We'll be reading the case, about 5 pages. I've already attached it to the chat so that all of us can actually download it to our gadgets and also read along. But just before we dive into the case and we read it, in case there's still somebody who is just getting to know me for the first time, been around for a bit, over 23 years HR experience, worked in about 12, 13 organizations, 12, 13 industries. So I have a PhD in economics. I've published 57 papers. I'll just leave it at that for today. Now, these are the course objectives, all right? At the end of today's webinar, all the participants, and of course, everyone who joins and watches on our YouTube channel, Oluyemi Adeosho, anytime, must be able to analyze how crisis moments, okay, how crisis moment can sharpen leadership focus and HR strategy. 2, how to evaluate best practices in compassionate offboarding and transparent internal communication. How to apply principles of employee dignity and support in right-sizing exercises. How to explore how value-based leadership can guide difficult HR decisions. And then how to design a resilient, future-focused workforce strategy in uncertain environments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to read the case study. I'm going to project, and our very own colleague, Uncle K, is going to be reading the case. He'll be reading the case to us. But of course, feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to also, read as we have shared the case on the screen. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the case is about Airbnb, and the next voice you'll be hearing is that of Uncle K. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeosho. Tonight, we shall be examining a case study titled A Message from Co-founder and CEO Brian Chesky. And the message goes, earlier today, Airbnb co-founder and CEO Brian Chesky sent the following note to Airbnb employees. This is my 7th time talking to you from my house. Each time we have talked, I've shared good news and bad news, but today I have to share some very sad news. When you have asked me about layoffs, I've said that nothing is off the table. Today, I must confirm that we are reducing the size of the Airbnb workforce. For a company like us, whose mission is centered around belonging, this is incredibly difficult to confront, and it will be even harder for those who have to leave Airbnb. I'm going to share as many details as I can on how I arrived at this decision, what we are doing for those leaving, and what will happen next. Let me start with how we arrived at this decision. We are collectively living through the most harrowing crisis of our lifetime. And as it began to unfold, global travel came to a standstill. Airbnb business has been hit hard, with revenue this year forecasted to be less than half of what we have earned in 2019. In response, we raised $2 billion in capital and dramatically cut costs that touched nearly every corner of Airbnb. While these actions were necessary, it became clear that we would have to go further when we faced two hard truths. One, we don't know exactly when travel will return. Two, when travel does return, it will look different. While we know Airbnb business will fully recover, the changes it will undergo are not temporary or short-lived. Because of this, we need to make more fundamental changes to Airbnb by reducing the size of our workforce around a more focused business strategy. Out of our 7,500 Airbnb employees, nearly 1,900 teammates will have to leave Airbnb, comprising around 25% of our company. Since we cannot afford to do everything that we used to, this cut had to be mapped to a more focused business. More focused business, travel in the new world will look different, and we need to evolve Airbnb accordingly. People will want options that are closer to home, safer, and more affordable. But people will also yearn for something that feels like it's been taken away from them. Human connection. When we started Airbnb, it was about belonging and connection. Temitope.
Okay, thank you. Hello.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, this crisis has sharpened our focus to get back to our roots, back to the basics, back to what is truly special about Airbnb. Everyday people who host their homes and offer experiences. This means that we will need to reduce our investments in activities that do not directly support the core of our host community. We are pausing our efforts in transportation and Airbnb studios, and we have to scale back our investments in hotels and locks. These decisions are not a reflection of the work from people on these teams, and it does not mean everyone on these teams will be leaving us. Additionally, teams across all of Airbnb will be impacted. Many teams will be reduced in size based on how well they map to where Airbnb is headed. How we approached reductions. It was important that we had a clear set of principles guided by our core values for how we would approach reduction in our workforce. These were our guiding principles. Map all reductions to our future business strategy and the capabilities we will need. Do as much as we can for those who are impacted. Be unwavering in our commitment to diversity. Optimize for one-to-one communication for those impacted. Wait to communicate any decision until all details are landed. Transparency of only partial information can make matters worse. I have done my best to stay true to this principle. Process for making reductions. Our process started with creating a more focused business strategy built on a sustainable cost model. We assessed how each team mapped to our new strategy, and we determined the size and shape of each team going forward. Uncle K, can take over.
Okay. We determined the size and shape of each team going forward. We then did a comprehensive review of every team member, and made decisions based on critical skills and how well those skills matched our future business needs. The result is that we will have to part with teammates that we love and value. We have great people leaving Airbnb, and other companies will be lucky to have them. To take care of those that are leaving, we have looked across severance, equity, healthcare, and job support, and done our best to treat everyone in a compassionate and thoughtful way. The severance. Employees in the US will receive 14 weeks of base pay plus 1 additional week for every year at Airbnb. Tenure will be rounded up to the nearest year. For example, if someone has been at Airbnb for 3 years, 7 months, they will get an additional 4 weeks of salary or 18 weeks of total pay. Outside the US, all employees will receive at least 14 weeks of pay plus tenure increases consistent with their country-specific practices. Equity. We are dropping the 1 year off on equity for everyone we have hired in the past year, so that everyone departing, regardless of how long they have been, is a shareholder. Additionally, everyone leaving is eligible for the May 25 vesting date on the healthcare. In the midst of a global health crisis of unknown duration, we want to limit the burden of healthcare costs. In the US, we will cover 12 months of health insurance through COBRA. In all other countries, we will cover health insurance costs through the end of 2020. This is because we are either legally unable to continue coverage or our current plans will not allow for an extension. We will also provide 4 months of mental health support through Coursera on job supports. Our goal is to connect our teammates leaving Airbnb with new job opportunities. Here are 5 ways we can help. 1. Alumni Talent Directory. We'll be launching a public-facing website to help teammates leaving find new jobs. Departing employees can opt in to have profiles, resumes, and work samples accessible to potential employers. 2. Alumni Placement Team. For the remainder of 2020, a significant portion of Airbnb recruitment will become an alumni placement team. Recruiters that are staying with Airbnb will provide support to departing employees to help them find their next job. 3. Rise Smart. We are offering 4 months of career services through Rise Smart, a company that specializes in career transition and job placement services. 4. Employee offered alumni support. We are encouraging all remaining employees to opt into a program to assist departing teammates find their next role. And 5. Laptops. A computer is an important tool to find new work, so we are allowing everyone leaving to keep their Apple laptops. Here is what will happen next. Temitope, please.
Here is what will happen next. I want to provide clarity to all of you as soon as possible. We have employees in 24 countries, and the time it will take to provide clarity will vary based on local laws and practices. Some countries require notifications about employment to be received in a specific way, while other process may differ by country. We have tried to be thoughtful in planning for every employee. In the US and Canada, I can provide immediate clarity. Within the next few hours, those of you living Airbnb will receive a calendar invite to a departure meeting with a senior leader in your department. It was important to us that whatever we legally could, people were informed in a personal one-on-one conversation. The final working day for departing employees based in the US and Canada will be Monday, May 11th. We felt Monday would give people time to begin taking next step and say goodbye. We understand and respect how important this is. Some employees who are staying will have a new role and will receive a meeting invite with the subject new role to learn more about it. For those of us in the US and Canada who are staying on the Airbnb team, you will not receive a calendar invite. At 6 p.m. Pacific time, I will host a World Heart meeting for our Asia Pacific teams. At 12 a.m. Pacific time, I will host a World Arts meeting for our Europe and Middle East teams. Following each of these meetings, we'll proceed with next steps in each country based on local practices. I've asked all Airbnb leaders to wait to bring their teams together until the end of this week, out of respect to our teammates being impacted. I want to give everyone the next few days to process this, and I'll host a CEO question and answer again this Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Okay.
Okay. And I will host a CEO question and answer again this Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Some final words. As I have learned these past 8 weeks, a crisis brings you clarity about what is truly important. Though we have been through a whirlwind, some things are more clear to me than ever before. First, I am thankful for everyone here at Airbnb. Throughout this harrowing experience, I have been inspired by all of you. Even in the worst of circumstances, I have seen the very best of us. The world needs human connection now more than ever, and I know that Airbnb will rise to the occasion. I believe this because I believe in you. Second, I have a deep feeling of love for all of you. Our mission is not merely about travel. When we started Airbnb, our original tagline was travel like a human. The human part was always more important than the travel part. What we are about is belonging, and at the center of belonging is love. To those of you staying, one of the most important ways we can honor those who are leaving is for them to know that their contributions mattered and that they will always be part of Airbnb's story. I am confident their work will live on, just like the mission will live on. To those living Airbnb, I am truly sorry. Please know this is not your fault. The world will never stop seeking the qualities and talents that you brought to Airbnb that helped make Airbnb I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing them with us, Brian. And that's the end of the
Case study.
Case study. Thank you.
Thank you so
Over
much.
to you, Dr. Adeosun.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm happy we were patient and we read and we listened. Again, I've shared the case. I don't mind resharing it so that everyone on this call can have it personally and read it. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you like to say anything about this case, before I even maybe go through the slides I put together, if you raise your hands, I'll recognize us one after the other, and we can share our thoughts. I don't mind starting with Uncle K and Temitope if they want to share anything.
Well, a very powerful message that the CEO communicated. It resonates. I could feel that it's a message that came from the heart. There are some messages that when you receive it, even though it may have some subject of sadness or bitterness to it, but you will not actually be sad or bitter about it because you feel like it's a necessity and it is the good for all. And that is the kind of message that was transmitted by the CEO of Airbnb. You will see that he was very human and humane. People are leaving the organization. He provided healthcare for them even after leaving the organization. People are leaving the organization. He even allowed them to go away with the laptops they are working with as a tool for them that will enhance their job search. So it's like, he even gave beyond what is necessary as severance package for them. So in all and all, if anyone is handing this over to you, you will realize that he has gone above the necessary. He has done above what is required. And above all that, he has actually used some very careful, well-chosen words to describe his feeling to the employees that are going, even telling them that it is none of their fault that this is happening, but as a result of circumstance. So it has nothing to do with their performance or anything. He has, in fact, the lesson therein is just that when you are fortunate to be on the side of the divide where the organization retains you, try as much as possible to have human feelings, have empathy, have understanding to those that are on the other side that might be leaving the company. I don't want to, overflog this. Perhaps Temitope or somebody else can come in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a very thoughtful piece, and the MD touched every part of their lives. He recognized their hard work while they were with him, and he was also generous or care enough to provide other necessary supports for them through their transitioning process, and then support to help in getting a new job out there. He also recognized how this could affect the security of people that will be staying. And then he also touched and talked about that. And the empathy was there. It was infused with so much emotions. And I believe that, okay, whoever is receiving, that memo, that letter can easily resonate with it, and then could feel every pieces and every empathy that is infused in it while it was coming up with that piece. So Yeah, it's a very good way of highlighting the remarkable hard work of people, even when you have to take the unexpected decision.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Temitope. Ladies and gentlemen, so you know, I didn't tell Uncle Kyo or Temitope they will be doing this. All right, so everything is spontaneous. They are just reading it here and now. I'm also excited that Olusegun's hands are up. You have the floor. You can please make your contributions and comments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun, for bringing a case study like this. I think everybody can hear me, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun. I'm one of your followers. Yes, I think it's a very, very comprehensive and complicated challenges faced by the company, and it makes me to remember one of the recent crises we are having in one of our subsidiary company, FinTech, why we have to lay off 35 last 2 months, and I think it's a little bit similar. It's also a business problem and everything like that. But throughout this case, from the beginning, listening to the case study, I noticed something that the company did not really tell us the method they use to relieve that 25% workforce. Is it FIFO, is it LIFO, or is it based on salary or a grade or performance? It was not stated really, though the case is full of emotional impact, operational gap, global variance due to the being present in almost 24 countries and everything. But in most cases, the challenges, I think, is global. Maybe the company might have think out of box, weigh everything before. My concern is that those who are staying, will they be able to have trust in the company again? That is it. Because I could remember the people that we relieved in our company recently. Many of them, because of we did not, I think the business leader did not allow we HR to really do proper processes. In fact, I can confide in you that we are still retrieving some of the laptop back. You understand me? So that's why I said that it is similar. There might be a gap, the relieving gap that makes some people, some staff to go away with their laptop and try to retrieve it back and everything. And those who are in the company presently, I mean my home company, many of them don't trust the management again, that what do we think will happen to us? So now we've started a new recruitment. Due to the salary, I think our own is due to the salary, the company can no longer meet up with the huge salary, and therefore we want to cut expenses. So it took the organization to call me and say that, okay, please, as every department that we are recruiting henceforth, you are going to be conducting training to each department. Like tomorrow now, I will be in our Ilupeju office to go and train our sales team. So I think this is a global crisis, and the management have think and do a lot of things. I think it's time for us just to analyze what leads to that failure. Is it value-based crisis leadership? Is it transparency gap, or comprehensive employee support that they can, a lot of things couple with it. This is just my understanding, and I believe that being our leader and as a doctor, maybe as we progress in this, you will share more light, because we need to learn a lot from this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for your contributions, Mr. Olusegun. All right. So we will defer further contributions till a little later, and permit me to just run through some of the slides I've put together based on the case study. Okay. But just to say this, sir, they stated the approach they used in carrying out the right sizing or downsizing. Okay, it's not last in, first out. It's not first in, first out. Okay, the articulated clearly in that letter that on a case-by-case basis, they are looking at each employee based on their capabilities and the strategic relevance of the future direction of the company. You know, when those employees were hired, in quotes, they were hired based on the strategic direction of the company in the past, as at the time they were hired. Then COVID happened, okay? But we'll still see more of that as we progress. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Now, the crisis context, they had to reduce or lay off 25% of their staff, 25%, okay? And that's approximately was 1,900 people out of a total of 7,500. Now, in 2019, they had a particular revenue. By 2020, their revenue was less than 50% of their revenue in 2019. So assuming that their revenue in 2019, assuming this hypothetical, is 100 naira, by 2020, it was less than 50 naira. So you can see that there's a financial scenario, okay? And the CEO, Brian Chesky, he said something, and I highlighted it in red here. And this is his picture, by the way. All right. He said, we are collectively living through the most harrowing crisis of our lifetime. And as it began to unfold, global travel came to a standstill. So this is a company that the main thing they do, more or less, is like, let's use the word shortlet. They lease out or rent out apartments to travelers. If people don't travel, there will be no need to lease or rent or take a shortlet, as the case may be. All right. Now, you will see here that COVID-19 altered global travel and decimated Airbnb's revenue. Okay. There were other macroeconomic dynamics and situations that COVID-19 medical situation led to travel restriction, and then it impacted on the economy. So Airbnb had to take initial survival steps, cut costs, you know, and they tried to be as transparent as possible from the beginning. Are we together? Now, Airbnb's business has been hit hard. They had to lay off people. This was not a pleasant decision, okay? Now, how did they approach this? All right. The CEO grounded decisions in value like what? Belonging, love, human connection. These are some of their values from the beginning as an organization, from inception. Even when they had to lay people off, they still, so to speak, held true to their core values. All right. They explore value-based framework for their HR decision. They communicated layoffs with authenticity and what? Empathy. Okay. You know what we call psychological contracts. You know, there's a documented contract, your offer of employment, but there's also a psychological contract, which may not necessarily be documented. And that's why when Mr. Shegun was asking the question, for example, that would the employees still trust the organization? That's like a breach of what? Psychological contracts, not of legal contracts. Okay, so they were careful to ensure that they still preserve trust amidst a painful change. If we stay long in this job, in this career of human resource management, one day, all of us, and this is not a prayer or a curse, please, and this is not a God forbid, you understand, you will be in situations like this. Note, it may not necessarily be a layoff, but there are many other situations that can mirror a layoff with respect to complexity, with respect to impact on employees. Okay, now, there are some key words and phrases and expressions I've quoted there. He said, and I mean the CEO, that for a company like us, whose mission is centered around belonging, ladies and gentlemen, when we are taking hard decisions in our organization, do we still remember our mission? Do we still remember our vision? Do we still remember our core values? Or we wear a completely different hat and our motivation and drive is anchored on fresh new principles just because we're in a chaotic or a hard time? All right? And he's saying here that this is incredibly difficult to confront. And it will even be harder for those who have to live Airbnb. You know, in this part of the world, we sometimes, in the name of being diplomatic, we sometimes don't want to say the truth, or we don't want to say it as it is. So we'll be using cliches like, it is well, don't worry. But this guy was, in quotes, blunt. Said things will be difficult for those who are leaving the organization. They didn't try to placate the scenario. Don't forget that at the time this thing happened, it was in the midst of a global pandemic. And as at that time, there was no date in sight to the end of the pandemic. All right? So he also said there that this crisis, so look at this, ladies and gentlemen, there is value in crisis. What did the CEO say? And I'm quoting him. He said, this crisis has sharpened our focus to get back to our roots, back to the basics. A few things here. Crises have benefits. It doesn't matter whether it's a personal crisis in your personal life, in your family life, or in your business. Don't be overwhelmed with the crisis and do not allow it to sharpen your focus. Where should be our focus? Our roots, our foundation. Now, he said something very profound. Sometimes we ignore it. He said, this crisis has taken us back to the what? Basics. What are the basics of your organization? What are the basics of human resource management? What are the basics, for example, from the organizational perspective, again, your core values, your vision, your mission, your purpose, your goal. You know, it's interesting that sometimes when some of us in organizational context are in a crisis, we are looking for complicated solutions. We are looking for a esoteric approach to solve the problem. No, sir, no, ma. We have to go back to what? The basics. Little wonder the good book says that if the foundation is destroyed, the foundation is the what? Basics. All right? Now, their mission is not just merely about travel. The human part was always more important than the travel part. The human part was always more important than the travel part. So in your organizational value chain, what is important? 2, what is more important? So 2, 3, 4, 5 things can be important, but can you rank the order and priority of importance? Okay? What we are about is belonging, ladies and gentlemen. At the center of belonging is love. Imagine, this is communicating a crisis. Look at the choice of words. Belonging, love is still sticking to what? Their mission. Now, how did Brian Chesty's team deliver an industry-leading offboarding experience? Again, you know, onboarding is when you are bringing staff, new staff in, while offboarding is when they are going out. Either they resign voluntarily or through retrenchment or downsizing, as in this case. Now, Brian delivered long-lasting effect on the company's employer brand and the employees' what? Career prospects. In summary, and I'll show this 1 or 2 times intentionally, look at all the support elements he focused on. Let me quickly say this. In some organizations, especially in our clients, when people are laying people off, they typically focus only on one item. Who can tell me what that line item is? You can drop it in the chat box. In most organizations, when they are laying people off, they typically just focus on one item. You can, thank you so much, Consilia. Severance package, money. In this situation, look at the number of things they focused on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They focused on severance package, equity vesting, healthcare, career support, laptop retention, and dignified communication. Now, in this crime, not only would we focus most likely on one thing, which is severance package, we will even do the opposite of some of the things that is showing now. Our communication may not necessarily be dignified, or our communication may be neutral. And I hope you know that neutral is not necessarily the same thing as being dignified. So here, of course, it may vary from organization to organization, industry to industry. If you are in a unionized environment, for example, there are collective bargaining agreements that typically, discusses the constituents of severance pay. And in some instances, the severance pay may be something that will be negotiated with the union or with the employees. And it can be escalated to the Ministry of Labor. They may weigh in and mediate, and then an agreement or a truce is reached. But in this specific context, they did 14 weeks base pay plus 1 week per year of service, rounded up. Now, I want to pay a little attention to this rounding up. I know some of us are accountants by spirit or by association. So if the person has spent 8 months, they will round it up. If the person has spent 6 months, they will round it up. You can also round down, and if you follow normal arithmetic rounding up and rounding down, anything that is less than 5 or 50%, what should you do? Following simple arithmetic logic, what should you do? You round it down. They were generous. They didn't round, there was no rounding down. What they did completely, in all instances, was to round up. You can see compassion. Then they had equity vesting, just for the benefit of 1 or 2 people here who may not really know what equity is. Equity is like stock, it's like shareholding. So because Airbnb, generally, especially as at that time, was still relatively a new company. So most new companies and startup companies, when they begin like that, especially if they are trying to attract employees from more established organizations, because there's a risk associated with startup, it may blow and succeed. It may also fail or fold up. So in addition to the salary, sometimes they may also not be able to pay as big or as much as well as established organizations who are in maturity. So they give you stock option. Some, they may say every year you stay with the organization, which is also like a retention package of strategy. Every year you get maybe 100 shares, 1,000 shares. These are hypothetical figures. Now, normally, according to the agreement, according to what is in the employment letter for the employees, you need to, for example, have done 1 year to be able to vest your shares. Now, vesting shares on a layman, very simple, means either to be eligible to own it or to be able to, maybe you want to sell it off. But in this case, they say, don't worry. Even if you spend 1 month or 2 months, you can vest your shares. You can see the company not focusing on being legalistic and being, so to speak, the big brother, the fatherly or motherly figure. Look at another important thing. For many individuals, especially who have family, especially who have children, if you are out of a professional paid job, it is not just the loss of revenue that will matter. The day your child will be sick, especially if you have not gotten another job, and maybe your spouse or partner is not working at all, and then you need to take that child, that boy, that girl, or those children to the hospital, and they tell you to come and pay some amount, and you can't afford it. That day, you will remember in a fresh and painful way that you don't have a job. They made provision for what? 12 months, 1 year of cover. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we do sometimes here? Immediately, the staff has not even gotten to the gate. You will quickly send email to HMO, say, yank them off, yank them off. Why? You want to quickly migrate the HMO package of that employee to a new staff that you've not even hired or that has not resumed. You can see. Then look at this, career support. So career support is not just for employees who are with us, who are, staying with us. They are also supporting what? People that are laid off. Now, I've also had situations and scenarios where people pay lip service to this career support. They were specific. They had created an alumni talent directly. They initiated placement team. They even got a consulting firm to arrange for this. And then they encouraged, the staff, the 75% that survived the layoff. Please, within your network, within your space, if you hear of any vacancy anywhere, please consider our ex-staff first. Consider the staff we have so regrettably laid off first. That laptop was what? A master stroke. Please, on this call, is there anybody here that the only laptop you have, maybe in your past or in your current, is the only one at work? Is there anybody on this call that maybe on your last day, you almost wish that they can sell the laptop? I mean sell, not even dash. Because maybe for a few days after you left your last job, you didn't have a laptop. And some people, maybe you want to take 1 month leave before you resume, or you may resume in some new organizations. The first 2-3 weeks, they never give you laptop. Even to watch movie will now become what? A problem. To send your CV. Again, this may be symbolic. We are not saying that anything that is done here that we must do exactly the same, or must be cast in stone, but it's to trigger our creativity to what can we do to ameliorate. In some organizations, they give phone. Okay. In this instance, it was a policy to allow all the staff to go with laptop. Of course, I know Uncle Shegun's concern. Oh, maybe what about the data on the laptop? What about this? A company like Airbnb generally do a lot of things on the cloud. Okay. So the local desktop is just a transient platform to work largely, because maybe documents are done in Google Doc, for example, and so they are not really going to lose anything. And maybe you are saying, oh, what about companies' confidential information? These were the people who created some of these documents anyway, so they already know it. All right. And look at the way they went about the conversation. One-on-one conversations with what? Senior leaders wherever possible. And the communication was spot on. All right. So, still focusing on the same thing, you can see that there was a comprehensive support package. Comprehensive means multi-layered. So it's like if you want to give somebody food and you give the person a buffet, when you invite someone to any of these restaurants, maybe in Ikeja or VI, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Ibadan, and you take them to a buffet and you've paid, eat whatever you want. There's one satisfaction beyond eating to your stomach limit. The odor, the option, the aroma. This is a comprehensive support package. 6 items at the minimum was made what? Available. If the money will not avail for you, the healthcare will avail for you. If they are so forth. Again, don't forget the number of people they sacked. Never assume that everybody in the organization needs only one thing. For example, everybody needs only money. We all need money. But I'm just saying, imagine that there are some staff who have maybe chronic illness, things like high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, who are on routine medication. Do you know what that 1 year, or we even have HIV/AIDS? You see how that healthcare will have what? Added value. Now, Airbnb had to do a workforce redesign. They aligned the team reduction with what? A redefined business focus. It's almost like as if I knew I was going to get a question like Mr. Shegun asked. See what they did. They aligned the team reduction with a what? A redefined business focus. So the COVID-19 pandemic forced them to re-evaluate what? Their business strategy. See, that strategy is very important. A strategy may be working prior to a pandemic, and during a pandemic, the strategy is no longer relevant, and you need to what? Recalibrate. Then they have to map their talents to future strategy and future capabilities. So when your strategy changes, some employees may not fit in, not because they are bad people. No. It may be that, for example, they may not be, even if you want to train them, because somebody say, why don't you train them? Don't forget they also had liquidity problems. So HR must be aware and understand, are we profitable? What's our cash flow like? Is it sustainable? Okay, so Airbnb had to shift from what? Growth mode to sustainable, or in another word or phrase would be survival mode. You know, when you're in a growth mode, this business strategy and approach, the HR strategy and approach in a growth mode is different from a survival or a sustainability mode. So you need to know as HR if the dynamics in your organization are changing. Of course, data will help us. Information will help us. Okay? They now need to do more of what? They needed to be agile. You know what it means when you have a 25% in workforce? It does not necessarily mean that the workload has reduced. But now you need to be more nimble. You need to be more flexible. You need to be more agile. You need to be lean. So that's why they have to do some restructuring here, as the case may be. Now, quoting directly from the case study that we read, he said, we need to make more fundamental changes, not just changes, fundamental changes to Airbnb by reducing the size of our workforce around a more focused business strategy. We assessed, now look at this and listen to this, please. We assessed how each team mapped to our new strategy. This is the approach, ladies and gentlemen. Workforce redesign. This is the approach. So they did, for example, a team assessment even before they now went to individual assessments. After assessing the team and they mapped it to their new strategy, we now determine the size. Size may now be numbers, quantity, and then shape. Shape may mean, for example, structure, organogram, reporting lines. I'm also trying to bring out salient HR value chain from this case study. Okay, so each team mapped to our new strategy. We determine the size, quantity, and the shape, structure, okay, of each team going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it became clear that we will have to go further when we face two hard truths. Now, what is the truth or the truths in your context right now in your organization? Or what will be the truths in the future when you face a scenario like this? I'm still hearing somebody saying, God forbid. It's giving you wisdom and insight to surmount the problem. So it will be easy. Okay? That's why we do scenario planning. What if? What if? What if? This is scenario planning. Now, what were their two hard truths? The first one, we don't know exactly when travel will return. You know, some people, they are not able to articulate their reality. They may be demonstrating and operating more in wishful thinking in mental hallucinations. This is the reality as at that time. We don't know exactly when travel will return. Ladies and gentlemen, the second truth is even more perplexing. Permit me to use that expression. What is the second truth? When travel does return, it will look different. Ladies and gentlemen on this call, the first thing I like to emphasize, reiterate key insights here by reading this case study from my end, we'll still take more insight from everybody as much as possible, is that even when many of us as HR practitioners and many of our CEOs and C-level executives, even when they know the first truth, which is we don't know when travel will return, they don't know that second truth. They expect and assume that when travel will return, travel returning now can be when your situation changes. So travel in this context is a metaphor. When the travel returns, it will look different. Many people will assume that, don't worry, once COVID is over, we are all vaccinated or we defeat coronavirus. Travel will return and then it will return to normal. But they were able to identify a potential new reality, which is, yes, travel will return, but it will look different. If it will look different, then we need a workforce redesign, a workforce that will be ready, that will be capable to support, drive the new look travel industry. Do you understand that? Again, we need to take decisions. They now went ahead to design compassionate offboarding. You know, they emphasized those robust things. Then, in addition to this, they gave consideration to global dynamics. You know, some of us, maybe we only work in an organization that is in Ibadan or Abuja or Port Harcourt or Lagos. The dynamic is different from maybe working in an organization that is pan-Nigeria. Or some of us work in organizations maybe in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Pan-Africa. When you are in a global organization, the dynamics. So that's why even though he sent one email to everybody, as he was communicating, he was also making provision and allowance for individual country-specific peculiarity. So if you are HR here, especially if the country originated from Nigeria, that's the country of origin, the home country. Are you with me? Please always resist the temptation that you will now take the Nigerian framework and you now want to hook, line, and sinker, operate it in Ghana, operate it in Benin, operate it in Kenya. You know, for those that Nigeria is just one of the branches and you are not the mother or parent company, no problem. You can't overrule the head office like that. And the head office too cannot really overrule you with things that pertain to local. Well, I see this challenge in my little experiences. Nigerian-owned businesses want to continue the same framework everywhere they operate, especially in Africa. In Europe, you know, there is this mental reset that quickly happens to them. But if you have worked in places like Benin Republic, you will know that they don't show there. Their labor law in Benin, I give it to them. Then they created alumni programs, support ecosystems. Okay, so these are some specifics that, you know, we've already highlighted with respect to what they have designed. Okay, so we'll be launching a public-facing website to help teammates living find new jobs. They were concerned about their future. A significant portion of Airbnb recruiting will become an alumni placement team. So they allocated resources from the HR team to go and support the placement. Placement means you are trying to help somebody find a job. So if it includes, let's help you review your CV. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that most people, immediately they lose their job. It may not be a good comparison, but it's not too far away. For some people, not everybody. For some people, when they lose their job, especially when it is not that they were the one that resigned. It's almost like a divorce. I'm careful, I don't want to, it's almost like they lose a loved one that somebody died. But for some people, it's like that. So they will enter into what? A emotional state like shock, emotional state like grieving. So that is not the frame of mind to begin to review your CV, even though technically you are supposed to. But any CV you review in that state of mind, how well would the review be? But we are now dedicating our professional HR, 2-3 people in our HR department to help you with that. Very thoughtful. Then there is what we call communication and change management. The one-on-one communication was critical. You will see clarity, simple terms, simple English. Again, look at the sheer length of the letter. 5 pages. 5 pages. Most people that I know, most organizations that I know, in this our client, 1 page max. They will keep it, they will say, keep it short, kiss, keep it simple and sharp. So there is really the need to manage effective internal communications, even in prosperity. How much more in a period of what? Crisis. Now, some people will survive. The organization also knew that something will change in them or something will affect them. So they also put proactive steps to manage the morale of survivors. Survivors here means employees that were not laid off. You know, if you are not careful, you may create a mental state where the surviving employees will initiate, let's begin to look for a job. This place is no longer safe. So you see the role of HR and management as steward of what? Emotional and structural continuity. People may have the technical capabilities to do a job. If they don't have the emotional stability, the value and quality and quantity of their output will be compromised. It will diminish. So some of the things they said it is important to us, that's the CEO, that wherever we legally could, people were informed in a personal one-on-one conversation. I want you to pay attention to this. It means it is not necessarily all countries that the law will permit or encourage one-on-one personal conversation. It may be in some countries that you have to talk to what? The union or to the representative of the organization. Why am I bringing this point out? Something may look good to do. Shouldn't it look good to have a one-on-one with everybody? But we are looking at a global organization. So because it is good to do one-on-one may not necessarily mean it is legal everywhere. So my distinguished HR colleagues, just because something looks good to you and pleasing to the ears, that doesn't mean you shouldn't check. Maybe with lawyers, the legal team, or with stakeholders who are very conversant and familiar, especially if you are doing business across borders. Many people have done good things with good intention and it had backfired. They also said there that we have tried to be thoughtful in planning for every employee. Some countries require notifications about employment to be received in a very specific way. Very specific way. They said, we feel Monday will give people time to begin taking next steps and say goodbye. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed, highly distinguished colleagues, do you notice how people typically take people out in this part of the world? You probably wait till Friday evening at 4:30 and drop the letter, and the person goes immediately. Please, do I have a witness in the house who has seen what I just described before, who is familiar with that approach? Or if it is a Tuesday, that same day. And sometimes they will almost escort you out as if you stole money. I'm not talking about somebody that was dismissed or maybe for theft or fraud. Even as a that, you should be as decent and as humane as possible. These are people, they didn't steal, they didn't kill anybody. In fact, it was not their fault. They were not the reason for COVID-19. They were not the scientists that created the virus. if that is the theory, and if that theory is correct. Do you understand what I mean? They just call you. These people are still giving what? Notice. They are still giving room for engagement. We feel Monday will give people time to begin taking next step and say goodbye. Do you know that there are some people, once they are sacked, they can't even say goodbye. They can't even hug. Do you know that merely hugging some of your colleagues can be comforting? Look at this. We understand and respect how important this is. Tiny details matter in people management. So beyond our digitalization, beyond change management, beyond AI, beyond data, you must still keep that human aspect of people management. Look at this. We understand and respect how important this is. Please, what is important? That people can say goodbye. My people, HR. These are some of the things that AI may not be able to do. Even though AI can say goodbye, but can AI argue? Okay, it will give you emoji, right? So, strategic reflections and HR preparedness. Crisis reviews what is most important, our focus, our purpose, and our people. These are three key important elements. Our focus, our purpose, and our people. We may need to conduct post-crisis HR reflection. And we need to think about it upfront so that we're not doing, because what we do in this climate most of the time is we do damage control. Because it will happen so suddenly, so swiftly, we don't even have enough time to plan. In fact, sometimes HR is brought in 1 hour to the time they want to terminate that person or those people, so that we can build muscle for future what? Resilience. We need to be able to embed belonging and empathy in our HR culture. All right. These are some statements in that passage that we read, in that article. I have learned this past 8 weeks. A crisis brings you clarity about what is truly important. Even in the worst of circumstances, I have seen the very best of us. One of the most important ways we can honor those who are leaving us is for them to know that their contributions really mattered. If you check that 5-page document we read, it was not offensive, it was not negative, it was kind from the beginning till the end. If your outcome is to let people go, you can still let people go with kindness, and kindness through kindness. You don't need to be bullish about it. Now, these are like the core value-driven leadership principles that were exposed in that letter. 1, belonging. Centering decisions around human connection and making everyone feel what? Valued. 2, and I'm sure all of us without exception, most likely we agree to this. Transparency. He was completely honest about the business reality. He wasn't using, sometimes we begin to use phrases, statements that are uncertain, and if things change, when things change, and very soon. No, completely honest about business realities and decision-making rationale. Completely honest. 3, compassion all the way. They led with empathy, understanding during what difficult moments. Then, even though they were letting people go, there was dignity. They are treating departing employees with what? Respect and honoring their contribution. Then various types of support, going above and beyond to help employees transition what? Successfully. Temitope says here that the CEO understands and respects differences and is ready to treat everyone uniquely based on acceptable standards. Olusegun here says the CEO opens with personal reflection and acknowledgement of what? Difficulty. Exactly. Fantastic. And then, even though this is a crisis, they did not throw strategy out of the window. In fact, it was still hinged on strategy, aligning workforce decision with refined business strategy and core mission. We must never let the pressure of our business climate, of our business reality, take us off and away from what business strategy. We must know what's the strategy now. Is it the same strategy? What's the new strategy? If the strategy is approaching, what needs to change? What competencies do we need now? What evolution do we need to make now? So this is just like a timeline of some of the things they did. You know, they had to do a strategic assessment, leadership team mapping, then comprehensive planning. Because that letter that you saw, if you notice, it said something about the last 8 weeks. It means it took about 8 weeks to arrive at that letter. There was comprehensive planning. That outcome, that letter is an outcome. It is not just a 2-hour brainstorming session. They develop support package, legal compliance across companies, personalized communication approach. One-on-one were permissible. They also did what? Public announcements, transparent company-wide communication, external messaging explaining decision and support measures. So that even, you know, if you are working in 2020 with Airbnb and you were laid off, you know, if you went to another organization, most likely that other organization will not ask you, why were you laid off? They won't ask. You know, today, once you see that somebody was laid off, in our mind, maybe disciplinary process, or it was indolent, or it wasn't performing. Because Airbnb made the communication public. Look, these people are good people. They are great people. They've not done anything wrong. They are employable. In other words, they didn't technically demarket them. Ladies and gentlemen. Then the last thing was ongoing support post the exit of those people. Now, I just said, let me wrap up in the next few minutes before we take our additional comments and contributions. Hopefully, we've had time to reflect based on what we read in the case study and based on a few highlights I've also brought to your attention, but I may still not have covered all the salient points. And even I would like to hear your thoughts and opinions. But I did some research, you know, desk research anyway. Don't forget that this case happened when? 2020. And this is 5 years later. So if we're having this conversation in 2020 or 2021, you can say, maybe it's too early to be able to say, are they doing well now? You know, was it worth it? And so on and so forth. So I dedicated a few slides for that. Long-term impact on employees. The first thing I discovered from my research, okay, I like stories that have happy ending. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure many of us do too. Many departing employees found new roles quickly, even during that COVID. Many. And they were really aided by this support ecosystem Airbnb built. So many. The transparent and compassionate handling of layoff elevated what? Airbnb's reputation as a people-first employer. In other words, Airbnb, even though it's not a bad thing, it's a painful thing, a regrettable thing that they did, but their PR, their reputation was enhanced, which is the opposite of what should happen. Because when most firms, organizations lay off, at least the sentiment that the citizen, the public have towards them becomes negative, diminishes, drops. Guess what? Airbnb's sentiment was even more positive. It increased. You can see, leveraging a crisis. One of my mentors, Bojo Yemade, will say, don't let your crisis go to waste. You have already, so to speak, taken pain. You have been inflicted pain. That was not a choice. But it is now your choice to now say, will I get the gain from this pain, from this crisis? Some of us just take the pain and don't get the gain. The pain is not optional, it's compulsory. But the gain is intentional. I hope somebody is listening to me here. Okay? So the leverage, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? A few months, years down the line, some of their ex-employees were later rehired don't forget that eventually COVID-19, so to speak, don't let me say went away, at least it reduced. Globally, we resumed travel and lodging and so on and so forth. So many of the people that they laid off, they rehired them back because Airbnb's business recovered. Imagine if they had laid them off with animosity, without proper courtesy, ethics, respect. Would those people that came back, do you think they will come back? For where? Now, pay attention to this. You know, I told you I did some research. Just tiny research, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this comment by this tech recruiter. This was towards the tail end of 2020. Please pay attention to this. I found it very profound. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe this is why you came for this class today. They laid off nearly 2,000 people with more care and dignity than some companies show their own remaining staff. I'll read that again. They laid off nearly 2,000 people with more care and dignity than some companies show their own current staff. Just for emphasis, not for lack of what to say. They laid off nearly 2,000 people with more care and dignity than some companies are showing their own remaining staff, which means the way Airbnb did it, in fact, you almost wish many people who are currently working in many places today, we almost wish they are the staff of Airbnb that is sacked. That's deep. That is what? Very deep, in my opinion. Now, post-2020 crisis management, because it's not just to manage the crisis, it doesn't just end there. The company has, so to speak, adopted, embraced lean operations and financial discipline. The cost controls and streamlined team structures established during the crisis have given Airbnb lasting flexibility and resilience. So you can see where I cited that from. Then focus strategic direction. You can see strategy again. Aligning talent and resources to core operations allow for what? Rapid recovery and subsequent diversification into services and digital innovation. So they pivoted from the crisis. Then the innovation power rebirth. Using empathy-driven leadership and operational discipline as foundations, Airbnb has prepared itself into forward-looking areas like AI, artificial intelligence, lifestyle services, and experiential offerings. Okay? So this is 2025. As at Q2 2025, we're in Q3 now. So I could only get data as at Q2, which is last quarter. Airbnb posted revenue of $3.1 billion. Okay. That's a 13% year-on-year. Year-on-year means relative to Q2 2024. They have a 13% increment. And they also have a net income. You know what net income means? All of us must understand account small. Net income of $642 million, which is a 16% year-on-year. The company also initiated a new $6 billion share buyback program on top of an earlier one of similar size. You can see. Okay, so Airbnb is evolving into a broader lifestyle platform, embodying what CEO Brian Chesky calls Amazon of travel. It now offers services like chefs, photographers, spa treatments, and more through its revamped Airbnb service feature, as well as enriched Airbnb experiences. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you can see they are become what? Resilient. They have a resilient global market performance. Okay, very, 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 very important here. Okay, and they are still growing forward under pressure of margins. Despite strong results, Airbnb cautions about slower growth ahead of due to what? Tougher year-over-year comparisons, tariffs, and regulatory challenges in major cities. So, while I know they finish, not be COVID, but you can see they have regulatory challenges. What do you call it? Trade, tariff increments, all this, making it slightly more difficult for people to travel, to get visas, telling people, for example, I've gotten multiple visas, 5-year, 2-year visa that it must now be 3 months. All these things directly and indirectly affect Airbnb services. As I begin to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, the 2020 crisis laid the foundation for trust between leadership and staff. Many HR professionals today, including me, that's why this entire case study was just around them. Cite this as a gold standard for what? Crisis communication and lay off. Airbnb's current success has in part been credited to how it treated people during its most difficult task. Okay, so Brian Chesky, let's end with his own quotes. He said, one of the most important ways we can honor those who are leaving us is for them to know that their contribution mattered. Key lessons for HR professionals. Key lessons: crisis clarity, speed and communication, empathy and sympathy, network leverage, future focus, employer brand. I'll pick a few. Okay, I'll pick a few of these key lessons. With respect to speed and communication, you see, increased communication frequency during rapid change. A faster decision requires more transparent communication. All right, let me pick network leverage. Utilize networks and industry relationships to create opportunities for what? Departing employees. Okay, future focus, build crisis response capabilities that create long-term competitive advantage and organizational resilience. Employer brand, how you treat people during crisis defines your reputation. Invest in dignified onboarding process. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of my thoughts, my views, opinions on this case study. So we will now come back to us. If you like to share, contribute, especially any key areas that we've not touched, or as you are listening to this case study or to my commentary, so to speak, maybe you had an idea or something in your own past in your organization, please, you don't have to mention any organization, please, that we can also learn from, that will help us manage communication crisis. By no means is this exhaustive, so I'm happy to take our thoughts, our comments, our contributions. Again, this will be on YouTube, uploaded tonight. Just go to Oluyemi Adeosun. If you are not subscribed to that channel yet, I don't know what you are waiting for. Okay, please subscribe, Oluyemi Adeosun, and share. Uncle K, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun. You have actually dismembered it, and you have actually exposed the skeleton of this whole, letter that the CEO wrote. The thing I just want to add to it is that I just casted my mind back to the first thing he wrote. And he said, this is the 7th letter he's writing, the 7th communication, which means that communication is very key. When you're in crisis, you must continue to communicate and communicate. You don't just micromanage people and think that because you are the one at the C-suite, you manage crisis at that level and you think they don't have the right to know until it is out of hand. You now say, okay, we have to lay off. People will not be happy with you. He wrote it there, that's the 7th communication, which means that there has been consistent feedback he has been giving the people. So communication is very, very vital and very important in managing crisis. I also picked a line also from this his write-up. He said that they had, if I may remember correctly, that the revenue for 2020 has even fallen short of half of what the previous years was. So if you ordinarily look at that and say for that crisis moment, they had less than the projected revenue, less than half of what the projected revenue was. So ordinarily you will expect that at least about half of the staff should go to be commensurate with what the figures were saying. So sometimes you don't also have to just look at figures. You have to look at, have compassion. Everything I read through in that letter, every single sentence, every single paragraph had compassion on it. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Life and director.
Yeah, so I could feel compassion in everything. And it was not just about speaking to figures, it was also speaking to emotion and compassion and the human part of the job. Not just looking at figures. Okay, we had less than 50%, so we should retain less than 50% just to, ordinarily that's what you'd have thought. But
Yeah.
he did just about 25% to show you that even what he's still carrying is not
25,
speaking to the
yeah.
figures. It's
Yeah.
not speaking
If
to the
you
figures.
allowed accountants to make that call, they will have done 50% at the minimum.
They will probably do even more than 50% and say,
More than
we need to stay
50%.
afloat.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I don't want to take too much time. Let me just stop here and allow others to also, contribute. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a brilliant submission. I like how you linked the numbers, the proportionality of the layoff to the proportionality of the revenue reduction. That's beautiful. And this is the kind of thinking all of us must operate from and operate at that level. Madam Princess, I'm happy you are available to share. Please, you have the floor, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Much. This is one that I would not have loved to miss at all. I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite join, I met them when they were reading the case study. However, I caught on, especially with the references that were being made to the case study. So I was able to catch on. And Mr. Uncle K has actually said some of us talk about, but let me still say them anyway. So maybe I'll just say them in in another roundabout way of saying that, the way the man communicated with them as early as God knows how long. If he said that he's written 7, that was his 7th, communication to them. So he's applied a lot of emotional intelligence into it. He's also thought, you can see that it was a well thought through. It wasn't something that he just decided that they were going to do, and they were very rational about it. They were very, very intentional. They put a whole lot of things, from the emotions of the people, from the psychology, from the financial perspective, from the, stability and instability, mental, and all of these things were put into consideration. And that was why he was able to, and all of them is encapsulated under emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is when we are able to, think about everything revolving around a human being, a particular person or a situation before we make decisions. And that's what they have done. Everything that could be thought about that will enable the severance or the disengagement of those staffs, of those employees, that will enable it to have the barest minimum impact on all of them that we're going. In customer service, we say there are ways that's why we don't use the word customer satisfaction anymore. We call it customer experience, because sometimes, you do things that the customer, you have not really, answered their question, but the experience they had with you explaining why things cannot be done it leaves them with a good taste in their mouth. And that's what this man has done, with those employees that had been laid off. He's left a good taste in their mouth, so that even when they move on, wherever they're going to say to them, yes, we were laid off. Yes, they had to downsize or right size or whatever way they call it now in political correctness. However, those employees had gone away, with a good heart, with a good mind, and with a good state of mind, towards their employer and towards the life that lies ahead for them. In every way, the man has really tried, the employers have really tried to ensure the emotional well-being of their staff in every way, in all ramification. And that's just what I wanted to put forward. Thank you very much. Every other thing, the technical ones have already been dealt with very well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, very kindly, for sharing. Thank you so much. Very insightful contributions and comments. Olusegun, you still have something to say, sir? I think I saw your hands up initially.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Doctor, for this insightful package. Today is one of another day that I really enjoy most, because as you are talking, I'm just reflecting on where my company got it wrong. Like when you said that, especially in the terms of communication, most of the people who want to lay off, even we HR, if not you are at the top level, you may not know what is going on in the company. So I now see my take home is the communication from the CEO. Very, very vital. And his leadership by carrying everybody along from the beginning, from the low staff level to the HR to everybody and every country. He maintained a clear link between decision and the company value. And that is a very good take home for me. And then another thing is transparency. I noticed that transparency builds credibility, because it make sure that at least it's transparent enough and the credibility is shown in everything they did. Then they make sure that there is a comprehensive employee support. They let them know where the company is. They did beyond severance, which as our whole is either you prepare a full and final for a staff and even be hiding it, even wait till Friday when they are going on. I'm sure that it is closing time, as if we are police or we are trying to arrest the person, or the person is going home to die and they don't want us to know we are the one who killed the person. You understand me? I begin to imagine that some of the things at times that we carry too much can easily be dealt with open communication and empathy. So thank you so much, Doctor. I really learned a lot today, and it's another day that I can never forget. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your contribution. Very meaningful, very well thought out, very helpful. You will see that when you manage communication like this, chance that anybody will go to court is near zero. As in, even people, your family members say, be calming down. Be calming down. Let's quickly take, let me read one thought, then we come back to Princess and Oluwatosin. I saw short thoughts here that I'd like to read. All right. So Tracy said, I think she's inferring, but I understand and I align with the inference that the CEO and the HR team worked together. They had like minds. I like that. I agree that whatever we saw there was not just the exclusive articulation of the CEO. It's the HR team, then let's extend it, and the management team. Fantastic. Let's quickly take Madam Princess again, then we'll take Oluwatosin. And we'll call it a wrap for tonight.
Mr. Shegun was speaking. You know, all of this while as we're having this, discussion and, this webinar, I was also, as a matter of fact, I actually have like a mental picture of this man and his team, somewhere in my head already. And I'm thinking, it takes a very brave person, very brave, to decide to embark on such a thing. A lot of the C-suite, they run away, they push HR to it. They will not engage. They will not be part of, that thing. They will not take the forefront. You won't see them at the forefront. They'll be at the back room making decisions and pushing HR to the front, to go and deal with everything. And then so HR will become a mediator. So I think we also need to applaud his bravado in taking the lead and ensuring that, all the other members of the team, the HR, the C-suite, everybody was on with him. And that's why they say that if, the leader, when the leadership takes the lead and is able to pull everybody around, you would always get success. Things would always turn out, at least 90% of the time, you'll find that, the results will be okay. And that's another thing that I just wanted to point out, that we shouldn't be afraid, especially if we know that we're doing the right thing and we have done all the consultations. We've included and communicate with everybody that needs to be communicated. We've ticked all the boxes, you know, as much as we could think about and as much as we can tick off. We've done all of that. We should be brave enough, you know, to come out and do the needful that we need to do at any time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Oluwatosin,
Exactly.
that's the final submission we will take. Is Oluwatosin still on the call?
Yes, I'm on the call, Doctor.
Okay, go ahead, my brother.
Thank you for this insightful lecture. This case you cited this evening reminds me of December last year, and it was a typical case of my organization where I worked before. And sometimes I call this executive arrogance from the part of management in terms of communicating exits. Yes, companies go through issues, and that's one of the reasons I have to leave the organization. Yes, the company went through some difficult situation, but the way we communicated was very poor. And not just me, the top management, several top management team left the organization. And when I got the email from, because we use a centralized system kind of, so I worked from the local branch. And when I got the email from the central team to send that email communicating the exits, and I said that email, I had to breathe in. When I had no option, I had to send that email. I immediately completed that email. The next was like, what's this? And a chain of reactions. And 3 months down the line, over 40% of the staff had to leave the organization. Those are not affected based on the change management that the company had to undergo. Reason being because it wasn't properly communicated. When I saw the case study, I was just realizing the December last year and what we did wrongly. And on the part of our city management, I target in my lexicon as executive arrogance. Sometimes management just wake up and decide to, okay, this is what we want to do without consulting HR, the how to go about it and getting the input of internal stakeholders within the HR team. And it's quite sad that the company today is still struggling and how, because they didn't really communicate properly the exits, the way they manage the exits. And I just want to thank you. This is really insightful. Communication is very key in terms of managing exits, and it shows empathy. It is critical, and once it's well managed, employees will understand, and they'll also be more like a brand ambassador for the company, because there's proper communication. So we can't overflow this over and over again. This is very important.
Thank you so much, Oluwatosin. At least everything you said, spot on. I just wrote one phrase down intentionally. Executive
arrogance. I knew it.
I like that word and the context in which you used it. Thank you for sharing. Again, one of the ways you know that insights and lessons are sinking in is when people can interrogate a case study and reflect vis-a-vis their own personal, organizational experience. Of course, we are not trying to make anybody feel bad. The past is past, but the future is bright. And all of us today, I'm just saying this respectfully, that if you don't have it on your CV before and you now put it on your CV that you can manage crisis, you are not lying. You can. There's nobody, especially those who joined and ended this session, anybody who will watch from the beginning to the end, permanently, the way you will approach crisis, layoffs will never be the same again. And that's why I was very intentional that even though I know it's 5 pages, we read it together and we read it together. Even if we had stopped after reading it, that was enough. You know, let me just end this conversation tonight by sharing one funny real life scenario that happened to me. You know, so I used to, in one of the many places I've worked, so you can't guess, I will code 1 or 2 things there. So I used to have one Oga, you know, in HR. This Oga, anytime we are hiring a new staff, the Oga will sign the employment letter. Anytime we are, for example, confirming a staff, the Oga will sign the confirmation. Anytime we are promoting a staff, the Oga will sign the promotion. But anytime it is termination, query, dismissal, the Oga will tell the HR manager to sign it. That was the practice before I became the HR manager. So the first, most organizations now, you have need to either hire, recruitment is relatively common. There may be employees who are resumed earlier, 6 months confirmation. So this Oga had been signing, confirmation, signing, offer letter, signing, promotion, signing. Then the first query ever after I joined the organization, as always, this person has stayed in the organization for many years and has been doing it with all the HR managers. And then the person now told me, I'm using the word person so that you even know the gender of the person. That's why I'm intentional, so that you can't code it. So the person now told me that, Oluyemi, you are the HR manager. Please sign the letter. I did the letter, put the person's name, and gave the person to sign. Do you know that the letter stayed on the person for like 2 days? I said, please, if you don't sign this letter, the person will not get the query. Guess what I told the person? I said, look, there are some subtle things in life, in our professional life. If I don't get the honor of signing the promotion, the offer, the confirmation, I cannot bear the dishonor, if it is a dishonorable thing to do, of signing the dismissal. What even the person goes to court and they say, who and which authority signed the offer letter? Then who and which authority signed the dismissal? What if the person even goes to court and says that maybe you don't even know that the person has been signed? Say, there's some simple concept, reciprocity. You can sign the letter that brings the person to the organization. You will also sign the letter that is taking the person out of the organization, if the case may be. I share this example so that you will see how some management, they will not be. So when when people get offer letter, on a lighter note now, maybe you share the offer letter with your partner or your family member, and maybe they see the name of the person that signed. They will say, God bless this person. Meanwhile, so it will not be my own name on the termination letter. At least if 2 people have blessed you before 2 people will attempt to place a curse, 50 minus 2, 48. I hope 1 or 2 people will learn 1 or 2 tiny things from this, my real life funny examples. It is very good. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what we do, we may not avoid layoff, or we may not be able to avoid difficult situations, but we can manage and approach them with grace. With these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that we can be kind all the way. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun. Thank you for this wonderful piece. I just want to say this. After hearing that CEO's speech, honestly, to get laid off the hungry me, really. I'm like, they laid me off. I want to feel special.
Don't go and lay off, sir.
Oh God, I didn't see that one coming. Oh God, that was funny,
Thank you, sir.
God.
Good night, sir.
Good night. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Good
sir.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you,
bless
everyone.
you, sir. You're always
Amen.
enriching our life.
Thank
God
Thank
you.
you,
bless
sir.
you.
Good night.
God bless you,
night.
sir.
God bless you too, my brother and sister.
Thank you, doctor. Good night.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, sir.